Call a meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Jones? Thank you. Mr. Costamakis?
Here.
Mr. Kostadakis?
Here.
Mr. Lamont? Ms. Remark?
Here.
Mr.
No, I know, he's
Here.
not here.
Ms. Ramsey? Here. Mr. Lee?
Here.
Chairman Webster?
Here. We have a quorum. Reed has indicated that we have Hector Garcia with code enforcement here tonight, and he wasn't on the agenda, but what I'd like to do is ask, can we move him up on the agenda even before, or maybe after approval of minutes? Any objection?
Sure.
Okay. Any motion with respect to the minutes?
Yeah,
Mr. Libby?
There's some corrections on the minutes. One is a typo on page 4. I think it's paper mache and not machete. Although that would be nice. I like that, machete. And then on more substantive one on page 8 in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph down, Mr. Libby stated that in the Main Street area there was an incentive to tear down and rebuild. There is an incentive to tear down and not rebuild was what I said. Those two corrections.
Any other corrections?
Yeah, Dino's name is not Tim.
Where?
Board members.
Sorry, where are you at?
Yeah, we've got Tim.
Oh, Tim Paspalakis and Tim Casadegas. Ah. A little clone.
The two Timmies.
Any other corrections? Do we have a
Motion
motion?
to approve is corrected?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And we will then call Hector Garcia up, please. Oh, pledge. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, okay, wait, one more thing. All right. Dear God, just thank you for getting us all here safely. Thank you for the ability to meet openly and where we have such freedom to have such different opinions and come together, hopefully in wisdom for the city. And just pray be with those people who are hurting in Aurora, Colorado. Amen.
Very good.
Sorry.
You going to say anything, Reed, or just let Hector take off? Very good. Mr. Garcia, we appreciate your coming.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I understand the board has some questions for me regarding code enforcement.
Well, I've got one. Yeah.
We have, yeah.
We'll
Go ahead.
start that way and come around.
Yeah. Mr. Garcia, have you had a chance to speak to the owners of the large building on the northwest corner of Main Street and A1A about the illegal employee they have holding up a 50% sign that's been out there for 4 months? We were very interested in whether or not there was any First Amendment protection. We asked legal and got the confirmation that that is illegal in the city of Daytona Beach, at least in that location. I'm wondering if you had any exchange with the owners of that piece of property?
I haven't spoken to the owner of that piece of property, but after addressing your concerns with the city manager, it's been decided that we're going to look further into the matter. So no decision, hard, concrete decision has been made. We're going to look further into this matter to make sure that all the ducks are in a row before any action is taken.
Is that because there's a disagreement with the legal interpretation of a code, or?
I don't know. That's the answer that I received.
Is the city manager's brother own the building? I mean, I'm not really, and I obviously don't, but
I don't think that's
a really.
a proper comment to make, that the city manager's
No,
brother
she's
made.
kidding.
I'm
She's
kidding.
kidding.
I'm
Okay.
kidding.
I know,
but, yeah, I mean, we're having a problem here
The last I heard, legal had communicated, gave them the provision that it violated, and that's the last I knew of anything. So it was for being in the public right of way, waving the sign. That's what came from our office.
Okay,
I can't comment
right.
beyond that.
Carrie, if we could maybe follow up on that, we'd appreciate it.
Did you have any indication of when the matter might be resolved?
No, ma'am.
Because he was out there today, too.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, could we get a a written response for the record from either legal or from the city manager's office or from someone on this issue? Because there are other property owners in the Main Street area who continue to be very concerned about what seems to be a special privilege that this property owner has. We don't see other property owners marching in front of their buildings holding up signs. I understand, Hector, that the manager's looking into it, but maybe we could get something in a written form so we could make it part of the record. I'd appreciate that if that's possible.
Well, I think we can follow up. I don't think we can direct them to give us a written document on it, but we certainly can follow up. And it ties into concerns I've got about lack of code enforcement prosecution on other issues too.
And I was going to say, wouldn't there be, even if, I don't know what's going on between the city manager and legal in terms of this, but if nothing else, wouldn't this be, I've almost had my windshield hit by that guy. Does this not come into, isn't code fall under police? Isn't this a problem with traffic?
Is he I don't believe that individual is impeding traffic. Is he walking out into the street, is what you're saying to me?
No, he's right there with a sign that is so big, and he leans it over. So, like, if you're turning the corner, you're seeing the sign and nothing else. You can't see if there's sometimes a pedestrian crossing. It's unsafe if it's nothing else.
We had a car drive right into that building 2 weeks ago and take out the whole
Corner.
north end of
Yeah,
the
but that had nothing to do with the sign waiver. That was something totally
No,
different.
but if you watch what he does with that, even if there's, dealing with code is one thing, but it seems like there's a problem, whether it's in the right of way or not, it's what he's doing at eye level as to drivers.
He is in the pedestrian traffic flow, so he's impeding pedestrian flow. It's a 3-foot arrow that he's out there spinning.
It's
not
huge.
It's not like just stands there fixed holding a sign. He's a sign spinner. He came into my business asking if I wanted a professional sign spinner on the corner.
Yeah. He spins, he waves, he jumps up, and it goes up and down. It's very distracting.
And there's a bigger concern that if we have one and he's allowed to stay, we'll have more. And they're really not conducive to.
I was going to say, on Saturdays and Sundays in the daytime, and I've talked to Mr. Garcia about that, I have a manager who has a son-in-law who needs extra work or whatever, so I let him for 2 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday hold a smaller sign. But I've told him, I'll be glad if you come back and say it's not allowed. I'll be the first one to remove it. I don't like it, but if it's allowed, then it's allowed. If it's not allowed, then it's not. But.
I do have the flashing open signs that are showing up everywhere, those are a violation of code enforcement too, right?
That's correct, and they are
Okay.
being addressed.
Okay,
Multiple properties have been cited, they have corrected it.
Okay.
And as, I believe tomorrow, which is the Code Enforcement Board hearing, we will be bringing some in. Even though they have corrected it, we will be bringing them in before the board to have it set up for a will fine.
Okay, because I would imagine the citation process would work very well for them too.
That's
'Cause is
correct.
that-
The
is-
citation process
Is
just
that
got
usable
passed.
now? Okay,
Just got passed by the commission, and now we are implementing the procedures of how we're going to go forth with it. We have to get the citations printed.
right.
So there's still a process going with the citation process that we have to implement before we can actually get it up and running. We've
Okay.
gone through the hurdle of getting it passed through commission already.
Okay.
Reed, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, just a wanted to let you know that what I'm hearing is, while we have, I think, some direction about this to leave this alone, I'm hearing that you'd like to continue to look into this and maybe get a different answer. So if it's okay with you, I mean, we can go on and on about it. I will go back and pursue this along with Carrie on the legal side of this. I know there was definitely a concern, and we brought it up, and we'll continue to pursue it. I understand Hector's position and what he has to do, but if that's okay with you, we'll go back and see if we can get a little clarity on that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a desire for that, so.
And I don't think, I mean, I heard the city manager being brought into this, but I don't think he is, I don't think we're dealing with that level in this case. I think it's just something we'll look into, but I'll take responsibility for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because leave it alone really isn't an
I'm hearing
answer.
that, yeah, I'm hearing that from the board.
Yeah.
I mean, I was told originally when I talked to Mr. Garcia that there was a constitutionality issue, and obviously the legal, says something contradictory to that, but maybe, I agree with what you're saying. Go ahead and pursue it, and then, and hopefully the city manager will look into it too, or at least respond to the board.
All right, thank you.
To my right here, do any other members have any questions or comments of Mr. Garcia?
I have two issues that I would like to discuss with you. The first one, I would like to say thank you so much. About 2 weeks ago, there's a house on Oleander that had been vacated, and it was filled with transients and people just living there, squatting there. So anyway, some of the other property owners on Oleander were getting very, very concerned about it, and it was becoming kind of a menace to some of the other owners and were around that. I called and talked to Daniel Garcia in your department, and I want to say he was so incredibly detailed and informative to me about the whole history of the house and what had been done and all the different things that you had done, the fire marshal had done, and I just couldn't get over how involved and the time he took to discuss in detail with me so I'd understand the situation. He told me, however, that they would have to have the police go, and as far as getting
Vacate the house.
Yes, and then right. So anyway, he told me to call Captain Holcomb, who was at our last meeting, I think.
Newcomb.
Newcomb. Newcomb. Yes, and within 7 days, the people were vacated, and that house was boarded up. And thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
The second thing that I would really like to ask you about, you asked for volunteers in the code enforcement department, and I already volunteer at least 4 days a month in helping my neighbors and do different things that I do. And I would like to volunteer because I know a lot of the violations that are in my neighborhood. But I'm not interested in volunteering in a different neighborhood because, it's my time, it's my investment of time, it's a good deal of time. I have to do it in addition to running my business. So I don't understand if the volunteer policemen work in the districts, the zones that they live in. I do not understand why the code enforcement volunteers would not do the same and be much more helpful and beneficial in the knowledge of those homes. So can you answer that for me?
Okay, you stated volunteer policemen. They're not volunteer policemen. They're just citizens on patrol that patrol certain areas of the city. They're not policemen. They have no police powers. They have no police authority. Now, as far as for code enforcement goes, Tracy was going through part of the training, and it's the way I've set it up is for your benefit as well as the city's, so that this way I don't get your neighbors calling me up saying Mrs. Ramsey or Miss Ramsey is coming after me or targeting me. So that's why I have implemented in the policy that if any volunteers, and I'll use the beachside for example, or live in the beachside, they will not patrol or work in the beachside area. They will work in a different area. That's why I've instituted that policy. And the chief agrees with me, and predominantly everybody agrees with me, because this way you're not being targeted as picking on somebody or selectively targeting someone.
And I can tell you from personal experience, in my neighborhood, there are 2 people, myself and one other woman, because neighbors don't like reporting on neighbors.
Right.
And so for 20 years, we've turned in people that neighbors, we're like, okay, fine, it's something we worked out in the neighborhood watch. And you will be targeted. Absolutely.
I've already been targeted.
No.
I've already been
But I
hit
mean,
and
no,
struck.
but if you, no, but I mean, seriously targeted if
I
your
got
neighbor's
seriously
out there.
targeted and hit.
So it's not something, it would make the code volunteer program ineffective.
That's correct.
And it's taken forever to get one in this city. There were a lot of just legal things that had to be jumped through and stuff like that. And yeah, it would ruin something that's just getting started.
Not only that,
And they
I've done
don't need that.
extensive research on other municipalities, and everybody's basically on the same page. So again, I'm not targeting or singling out the beach side, but if you reside in the beach side, then it's not effective to have you patrol in that area or help us out in that area. I would put you in a different area of the city where now you're getting a different perspective. You're seeing things in a different light. You don't have that tunnel vision of your specific area.
Do you want to give your telephone number out, the 671-5290 number?
I guess I just did, so maybe can I give your cell phone number out? And
So that way, if Ms. Ramsey wanted to, report something specific, she could just leave it on your voicemail. And then
Oh, I got the
most
number.
definitely do that.
I got
And
the
yes,
number.
she has it. And I've
Okay.
spoken to Ms. Ramsey and Daniel Garcia as well, so.
That's fine, and I won't be volunteering because I'm just not going to invest my time that way. But I understand and respect, why you're doing it. But as far as the volunteer, or they're not volunteer policemen, they are, what did you call them?
They're citizens on patrol.
Citizens on patrol, okay. Well, my observation is, of the citizens on patrol that I know in my neighborhood, that they do call in and report all types of violations in the neighborhood.
But calling in something is one thing. Any citizen has the right to call in any problem that's within the area.
Well, what's the volunteer enforcement person doing? They're not directly going up and knocking on doors and writing tickets, are they? They're just reporting back to you, are they not?
No. No.
They're going
The
up
code
and-
volunteers are not they're not having direct contact with a citizen or a resident. What they are doing is they are being an extra set of eyes and ears for the code enforcement department out in the field. If we need some additional assistance as far as doing follow-up inspections, making sure that 123 Main Street, the grass has been cut and the picture could be taken, then we will utilize our volunteers to do such things. They also go out and pick up signs, the snipe signs that are illegally placed throughout the right-of-way throughout the city. So there's different functions that they will be doing. They won't be doing
And
the
those are all
initial
pu-
code enforcement duties because, again, they're not certified, they don't have the training, or even though they do get training, they get trained in Florida State Statute 162 so that they have an understanding of that. They get trained in the process and the policies that we have in place within the department. And they ride, right now I have, as a matter of fact, today I had one of the volunteers go out, she rode with one of the officers. She was out there for 2 hours riding with one of the officers to see. So these are things that we've implemented that, and it helps for us, especially, on the weekend or during the week where we get bogged down. I mean, today alone, my phone must have rang at least 100 times. Now, out of the 100, it doesn't mean that I'm getting 100 complaints, but when I'm getting complaints out there, I'm sending officers from point A to point B to point C, where a volunteer, if I had one working during the week, I could turn around and say, hey, go check this out for me while the officer's doing something else.
I had a couple items. One is there's like a furniture sale on Oak Ridge Boulevard in front of a motel right behind that Handyway almost daily. I mean, he's selling his couches for $500, his chairs for $10 and stuff like that. I don't know if you've seen that. It's almost on the corner of Oak Ridge and A1A. It's right behind.
He does,
that-
yeah, that's right.
What's that?
I've seen that.
Yeah, he's almost daily selling the same couch. I mean, it should be garbage material, and he's trying to put a $500 price tag But anyways, and it just looks tacky. But the second thing is, I believe Mr. Kostadakis at the last meeting brought up an issue about T-shirts, which I'll yield to him. Some of the words on the T-shirts.
Yeah, some of the shops, especially to the north of Aura, they just have a lot of profanity and stuff in their windows,
North of Aura?
north of Aura. And they tend to also, starting Friday night, Saturdays and Sundays, line up merchandise outside their stores.
And this is at night.
Yeah.
Code enforcement doesn't work at night. We stop at 6 o'clock.
That's why they
So
do it.
That's why they do it. So.
So in
what's-
order for us to write somebody up, we have to see it.
So what, so.
Can a volunteer go out at night and take a picture?
Volunteer, you, as a citizen, you can send me a picture, but we have to go out and then verify that picture. Because the
Yeah.
code enforcement board, you have to, the person who took the picture has to testify that, yes, I took that picture.
So that means it's impossible to prosecute for somebody for
No,
a violation
nobody's
that
saying
occurs
it's
after 6
impossible.
o'clock.
I'm saying that we don't work at night. Now, you're making me aware of this. I have to come out myself. Well, I don't have to. I could have one of my
Well, can you
officers. But me,
randomly-
myself, I'm coming out this weekend for the boardwalk because there's been a couple complaints for certain issues that are coming out. So I myself am coming out to verify what's going on.
Right, because I mean, I know, like, as far as like even trespass things, I can have somebody trespass off my property, I can take a picture of the guy sleeping behind my dumpster, but that doesn't mean that there's no law enforcement that's gonna come
That's
pick
correct.
him up. So-
See, my photos, when my officers go out, the photos are date
Right.
stamped, time stamped.
Right,
When he or she presents it before the code enforcement board or the magistrate, he or she is attesting that he took that picture. So the testimony is from that officer himself, and that's the way Florida state statute reads.
so if I went, I took a picture and I had a Polaroid and I had a notary with me to notarize that it was that time of day, I mean, so there's really not much, I mean, unless,
Can
like you
they be
say,
staggered?
you've got to.
I'm sorry?
Could hours ever be staggered?
Yeah, I mean, geez.
Has there
When can
ever been
hours
any
be staggered?
conversation, like you have a code officer that works, I don't know,
10
8
to
to
8.
whenever, and another one 11 to 8,
I could look into that.
It's something
We
like
do
that?
stagger our hours for special events, so I could look into that. But again, like I said,
Yeah.
if there's an issue that's been brought up, you just brought up the shops north of Aura, then I will have myself or somebody else come out and we'll take a look. And if there is a violation, we'll address it.
Is everybody, I have a few questions too. Everyone's,
Well, there's a lingering question, Hector, about trucks blocking one or both lanes of A1A in both directions after 7 o'clock in the morning making deliveries. Does the city have a policy, or would you like us to make a recommendation to the CRA, a policy about how we handle semi-tractor trailers that are blocking at least one, sometimes 2 lanes of traffic
On A1A?
on A1A?
I'll look at the parking ordinance and I'll report that to the police department and have them look into it.
No blinking lights, no cones, nothing. They just, pull up the semi-tractor trailer, leave it in either lane and start unloading.
Usually in front of Ocean Walk. That
Uh,
happens a
near
lot
Ocean,
there.
on
Yeah,
both sides
yeah,
of
both
Ocean
sides.
Walk. The Ocean Walk situation is another major traffic problem where the semi has to back
Yeah.
across all 4 lanes of traffic and then back across 4 lanes of traffic to get that great big semi-tractor trailer in that very little opening. And if you've ever been down there, there's maybe a foot on each side. The guys are masters at doing it, but what it does is really screws up that traffic light. It's right at a traffic light as well, and it's a real problem. My only fear is that somebody is going to be crossing the street, and I'm very glad we haven't had a major traffic fatality or accident because of these problems with trucks in the morning.
I have another question. I was going to bring this up at the board comment time, but since you brought that up about the trucks, I'm thinking that maybe this is under your supervision. We have a serious problem with dog feces all over our streets, And that's not
Animal control, that also falls under my department.
under your department?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Oleander and Hollywood and Harvey and Wild Olive have excessive amounts, I mean ponderous amounts, ponderous, of dog excrement. And on my street alone, there are 10 large bulldogs, what do they call them?
bulls.
Pit bulls, thank you. Pit bulls. And myself and 4 other property owners that live on that street have all witnessed the exact same people who walk these dogs and never, ever, ever pick up the feces. Never.
Do they live on the street or
They
in the
live on
neighborhood?
Oleander, yes, sir. Most of them live on Oleander, and several of them live on Harvey and Peninsula. And,
If you would, give me a call,
yes,
give me the address, and I'll address the issue.
thank you so much.
I have a few questions, just really more general, and that is, with respect to a citizen wanting to make a complaint, is there a manner in which they can do that and then follow up on that and track the progress of that complaint?
They can contact the office and call if they want. Give me their name and number. The officer will give them a follow-up, let them know where they are at the case, and they can also follow up with the officer after he or she tells them, you know, if it's going to take 10 days or 15, 20, 30, whatever time frame they've set to come into compliance. There's also a way of track it on,
Track.
correct, through the internet. You go on through the city's website. I can get you the instructions of how to do it if you're concerned about that, and send it to you via email so that you could also track the progress of a case.
Well, but how do you get that case initiated if a citizen's making a complaint?
That's the initiation. The citizen complains and we go out and investigate.
Okay. What about when the police is initiating a complaint, such as a noise violation and such?
Then you have to follow up with the police department.
Okay. Can you tell me in the last year if code enforcement has opened a single case relative to a noise violation?
I've sent you all that information via email prior to my arrival here today.
Oh, you did respond to my email?
Yes, I did.
Okay. The email I sent you like 3-4 months ago?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so how many such prosecutions have there been?
I have not, I didn't have that information. I don't have that information right now because I didn't know you were going to ask about it.
Okay. You didn't know I was going to ask about it tonight?
That's correct.
Okay, even though I sent you an email months ago asking for
And I
it.
answered you months ago prior to my arrival here today.
You sent me an email months ago responding to my email
Yes,
with the
I did.
information?
Yes, I did.
And
Sent you
you
information on the case that you particularly called in. I gave you that information.
And when did you send me this email?
I don't have my computer in front of me, so I can't answer
was
that question.
Are you saying today or previously?
Prior to me being here today.
Did you send it today?
Am I being interrogated here?
I'm asking you a question. You're saying you sent me an email of which I have not seen an email.
Okay, and I stated to you, I sent it to you prior to my arrival today. So if you sent me the email 3 months ago, I do not recall the exact date.
But it wasn't today is what he's trying to.
Yeah, correct,
It was not today.
correct.
Okay. Can you resend me what you sent me?
I will look it up and see if I can resend it to you.
If
If
you would,
not, I will
because-
let you know.
I never did get an email responding to my request for information.
Okay.
Okay? So can you tell me today that there have been, within the last year, prosecutions of the noise ordinance, or at least cases opened with respect to noise ordinance alleged violations?
I have to look that information up.
Okay. So of your personal knowledge, you don't recall any?
That's correct.
Now, can you tell me if there's any training process in place or any program with respect to training either your officers or the police officers with respect to the noise ordinance and its enforcement?
We are, actually, I've set up training for the sound meter, which is in approximately 2 weeks. The exact date, I don't know.
Now, who's that training for?
Code and police.
Now, prior to that training session, do you know if there's been any other training sessions with respect to the noise ordinance?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, Did I hear you state that the only way in which testimony can be presented with respect to a violation of some code matter before the code board is if it's your officers testifying?
Or if the person decides to come in. 99.9% of the time, most of the complaints that we get are anonymous, or people want to remain anonymous, or they can't come to the board to testify to what they saw. So my officers have to verify that these violations did in fact exist.
I could sort of go a little further, having been on the code board too, since it is the only, the code board acts as judges under Florida law, and
As a quasi-judicial.
right, and everyone actually is sworn in, and it's evidence that's given. It's not just, so they do, the officers, the only ones who don't have to swear an oath are lawyers, because they're,
Presumably.
yes,
telling the truth.
presumably, yes, part of the, but it does have to, so they do have to see it, because they are
Well,
testifying to the
I'm
board.
not debating that, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to clarify that a citizen who sees a violation, such as this guy with the spinner or the closeout on the street or whatever.
They have to
at-
go see it.
After 6 o'clock,
We have to go see them.
why can't a citizen see that, take a picture of it, and be prepared to testify?
You can.
I just said they could, but 99.9% of the people will not come in because either they work, they want to remain anonymous, they don't want a conflict.
But
with
if
one
they're
of their
willing to,
neighbors.
it could happen.
That's correct. They would have to be subpoenaed.
Dan, it's education. They don't know. They don't
Mm-hmm.
understand what the process.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand, because it didn't make sense to me that a citizen couldn't testify at a code enforcement hearing. But you're telling me a citizen can if they're willing to do so, or if they're subpoenaed, correct?
That's correct.
And the code enforcement board has subpoena power.
That's correct.
But if a citizen wants to volunteer to come in, they don't have to be subpoenaed. Would that not be correct?
If they want to volunteer
Yeah.
to come in for.
To testify as to a
testify.
violation?
No, they don't
Say
have to
we're
be
seeing the
subpoenaed.
dogs, you know,
If they want to voluntarily come in, they could.
Yeah.
But again, 99.9% of the time, they won't, because they don't want to have to deal with the repercussions. You know, I ratted out my neighbor. That's the mentality that most people have. I don't want to get into a confrontation with Dino because I'm the neighbor 2 stores down from him. So they won't come in.
but if the citizen sees the violation, takes the picture, is willing to testify, we don't need a code enforcement officer there to corroborate. Would that be your
No, the code
understanding?
enforcement officer still has to go out and initiate the case. He has to see the violation
Oh,
in order to start the case.
He has to see the
The
violation?
citizen, that's correct. The
in
citizen, yes. The citizen can give us what they found and what they believe is a code enforcement violation. We go out and verify it, and then we take the necessary steps from there.
Is there a form for filing a complaint with respect to a violation?
There's a form, they can do it in writing, they can come down here to City Hall, there's a form that they can fill out, they can send it via email, telephone, the city's website, Easy Track, or Track Easy rather. We have that option also, that I get complaints all day long from citizens on that.
Okay.
I have one more. On the boardwalk, we currently have street entertainers, and I was talking with Mr. Berger the other day. There are some people who are not authorized to be out there. The ones that are authorized have a badge that I have given to them. Years ago, there was a RFP issued by the city that I ended up winning the RFP, where I licensed the street performers. Right now, I have a juggler, a magician, a escape artist. I do have a balloon artist, and a couple other type of jugglers who fill in when this juggler cannot fill in. Okay, but anybody who's hair braiding, I have not licensed. Anybody who's doing any
It's
type of
funny
thing.
you mentioned that, because that's one of the
I know
complaints I'm
that,
going out to
and I
go
knew
and
that.
investigate.
So I just want you to know, I gave a sample badge to Mr. Berger to give to you, and he has it. But you will not find any hair braider with it. If they use my name, just know they're lying, okay? Okay, 'cause, well,
And you're gonna come in and
there's people
testify that
know
they're
my-
lying.
I know, there's people that know my name and they'll throw it out there. I mean,
Unless they have a badge, they're
3
not
years ago,
legal.
and this is, no, 5 years ago, this is a true story. There was a drunk Spider-Man who was taking pictures with kids, but what he did was he lied to the tenant and had the tenant sign a piece of paper. He came down to City Hall, got a license from a business license to go out there and take pictures with kids. And I was throwing a fit because here they have, there's a drunk, I mean, the guy looked like, whatever. Anyways, and it took a whole year for me to stop that from happening because they gave the license out, But anyways,
Not doing that anymore.
yeah. So that's like I said. So if you see any hair braiders out there or anything, they do call me all the time, and the city hall gives them my cell phone number, and I'm always answering the call.
What
and
number is
telling
that?
them- What?
What number is that?
I know, I'll give it to you. You have it, 334-2102,
I got it, I got it.
But anyways, just know, please get rid of them, and get rid of
The snoozer?
the palm leaves. The people that do the palm leaves things, I don't okay that either,
Can you give him a list of who's authorized to be down there?
I was just gonna say
Wouldn't that
that.
be
Can
easy?
you send me a list of who's out there
That
with
would
the
be-
permits, and
Yes.
that'll make life a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Not a
Mr.
problem.
Chairman, in downtown St. Augustine, they have signs, very tasteful signs, that alert people who don't realize they think it's a public space and they can set up their easel and take the photograph of the kid dressed as Spider-Man. We have very few signs that educate people down in the boardwalk area, and as it becomes more and more popular, I mean, several weeks ago, we had a group come down there with cones. They blocked off the public right-of-way because they were going to have a jogging contest down the boardwalk and back, and it was out of ignorance. They didn't realize that they couldn't do that. They needed a permit in order to use that public space. So I'm just wondering, Reed, if there's some education that we can do. I'm wondering if all the people who walk their dogs on your street know that they are required to clean up after the dog or not, or whether it's the sin of ignorance.
Certainly the ones that I drive by and roll down the window and offer them a plastic bag, they certainly know.
Yeah, okay.
By the way, Mr. Garcia, I will furnish you by the end of the week a list of all the names that are authorized to perform on the boardwalk and the acts that they perform on the boardwalk. So that way you will know exactly who's out there.
That'd be
And I
greatly
have them sign,
appreciated.
sign contracts and what have you, and and the boardwalk provides insurance liability to the city. And we get checked by, risk management and everything like that, so.
Without signage, I can't imagine how anyone would know.
There's a couple thoughts, and we don't want to have too much overkill with signage, but I think with other places where you have ambassador programs, where you have the people that are out there to welcome you, so I think more bodies of people who know what's going on, what the events are, can help people, tip them off that, hey, the skateboards aren't,
The
supposed to be down
skateboard and the
here.
dogs need to be going
And the-
back up on the sign,
Yeah, we need, but also just to remind them, because they're in between
bicycles.
signs. But I understand what you're saying, and I hope that we get to that point, because that was the intent all along, was to have people out there that could walkie-talkie, that could use the facilities there, and you could have basically that citizen volunteer that's out there and helping the police code anyone else with their eyes and ears.
And the bicycles has to have an exception for the petty bikes. That's specifically allowed by the
Right.
city of
And I am going to take that badge that you gave me. It says juggler, so if you don't mind, I'll be out there juggling.
You can perform
Okay.
anytime.
All right.
I have one last question. The street that I live on and the streets around me in Zone 3, I have never seen anybody, and this may not be your department, I've never seen anybody clean the mediums in the street or do anything with the landscaping, clean up any trash, pull any weeds. trim any palm trees.
Zone 3?
Zone 3. I've been there, living there a little over a year now, and I have never, ever seen anybody. Now, I know I found out that the Salvation Army has something called a street team, and I understand from a couple of the fellows that I was talking to that work for them that they go all the time and they're up on A1A, I think. So why couldn't they be part of our streets in Zone 3, the residential streets? I don't know who I'm supposed to be asking that, but do you know about that, Reed?
I don't, I guess when you're asking about those people that are doing the cleaning and everything else, the difficulty with that is the time that they have and the supervision that we have to keep them on streetscape areas, because that's what the CRA, at least right now, is paying for, is those improvements. So when we get them off into these other areas, they can still be in a redevelopment area, but if it's not that improved area where we've invested, we're starting to get into gray areas. I just soon not get there.
So the street team is through the CRA?
We
volunteer.
are
They're
contributing
not
to it.
volunteer. They're not volunteer. They're paid,
They are.
and it's to help a back-to-work program. It's a very involved, it's homeless. It's a very involved, yeah.
Yeah, but they are, okay. What, does that fall under Mr. Garcia's department?
No, that's,
No.
it's
So that's-
Redevelopment.
yeah. It's managed by the Salvation Army. We contribute some funds for the purpose of getting that additional maintenance.
Well, what about city employees that clean the streets?
Susanna, are we done with Hector then?
That's not code either.
That's not code, that's Public Works.
Public
I made a
Works.
notation of it so I can forward your concerns to them.
Yeah.
That's not code either.
Oh, thank you for doing that. Appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Garcia, thank you for coming.
That's it. Have a good
Thank you
night.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll, do
Okay.
you have your,
Moving on to public comments. Any public? John?
Yeah.
Any other public desiring to make a comment?
Okay, and then Mr. Bott.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. There are indeed 5 different groups that clean your streets. You have, the CRA has funds to clean what it has done. You have DOT that does A1A. You have a city staff that would normally do any other portion of the city. You have the street team where you pay $20-some-odd thousand a year. And then you have prisoners. So nobody's ever organized them so that they don't all clean the same thing. That's part of the problem. I'm also told that you have 3 city staff that you pay out of CRA funds, $100-some-odd thousand, that are there 40 hours a week, so you get 120 hours that they devote totally just to the CRA. I've never seen them except for on the boardwalk, but I'm told they do the entire thing. So you take that for what it's worth. The city says they're there. If you find them, let me know, because I've never seen them. Secondly, you have a part-time CRA project manager. You pay $27,000 a year for 35 hours. If you project what he's done for over a 3-month period, which is about 7/10 of an hour per week, you pay $27,000 for 35 hours, or $1.5 million for a year's worth of his salary. I think you need your own project manager that you used to have. He'd be a heck of a lot cheaper. Lastly, your funding, and I've given you the numbers, you have $250,000 sitting there somewhere in unused employee salaries that I think you could have done your fireworks and your band shell and your whatnot. So I think you really should look into your funding, what you're paying. There's a lot of money that you don't realize that you have. All the other CRAs are given outlines. Their diagrams, there are things on the screens, et cetera. They know where their money's coming from, how much they're paying, what's being done. You all don't do that. I don't understand why. I don't understand why you don't get your budget reports every year and go over them like they do. But I think it would be to your advantage to know how much money is there and where it's going to. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other public comments? Moving on to number 5, DEV 2012-075, the ocean deck.
Okay, thank you. I will just go right to a continuation of last month and allow Mr. Botts, if that's okay with you, to come up, and he has someone with him that also that can explain and update you what they're attempting to do with an architectural embellishment.
Good evening. I believe you have a revised picture on there.
Could you give us the address?
Name and address?
Name, address, Ken Botts, representing the Ocean Deck at 127 South Ocean Avenue, Daytona Beach. I reside in Port Orange.
That's the revised.
From the information that you all gave me last month, we revised the picture, taking the beach ball off.
Is this
Yes.
That is the one.
the new and improved?
It is. I have, to answer some of your more technical questions, I have Al Townsend from Townsend Signs with me tonight, and he can give you a little bit more information. There should be a letter there as well that Al sent to me that kind of describes in a little bit about what that embellishment is going to be made out of, and he can speak to that a little bit more if you have questions. I wanted to let you know that I'm submitting it very similar to what it was last time, with the wave overhanging and with the sun at the top. That's what we would like to see. Of course, it's your decision as to whether that needs to be brought into the frame of the building, and that's up to you to give me some more feedback on.
I'm a little confused. I see the one picture with no beach ball and the Ocean Deck sign still there, and I understand the Ocean Deck sign is not part of the approval process.
Correct.
But then when I look back in the package that we've got, I see the beach ball back in the picture. Are you asking for it without the beach ball?
Yeah, it's without the beach ball.
Yeah, you just have last month's
Okay.
report, because in case you didn't have it, just
Okay.
refer back to it.
All right.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Libby?
Reed, did the staff have a chance to see the revised drawing, of the revised visual? City staff?
No, the engineers and everyone else did not.
Okay. Do you know whether or not initially the city staff had a problem with the embellishments violating the roof line of this structure?
No,
that wasn't an issue?
No, it was not an issue, and it was not, really, I think there was a reluctance to really comment on this particular one because of the nature of it being a judgment call and on embellishments, architecture left to this board.
Well,
So-
Mr. Bott shared with us his discussions with the staff.
Sure.
You know, and
Sure.
they did have some questions. My question is, the city then has no problem with the sun moving out beyond the roof line, or the wave moving, beyond the roof line, the architectural integrity of the building.
Yeah, I think the building stands on its own, and I think the coming out over the top is intended to draw.
Is permissible, okay.
Is
And the
it
city does-
permissible? That's correct. It's not like a projecting sign
Okay.
or something that might be above, you know, how you can't go over the roof line?
Right.
Yeah, that's not an issue. So we're okay with it if
So if that were a sign, we would not allow it, but because it's an embellishment, it's okay.
right. That's
If
correct.
it
Mr.
said
Chairman?
something, if it were Ocean Deck, we wouldn't, if that sun said Ocean Deck,
And it was above the roof line.
We would not allow
We would
it.
not allow it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I took the liberty today, and I wanted everybody to have a copy of this, to go around. Just press it down.
Is this your above the roof line embellishments?
To take pictures. Well, one's for you. Everybody take one and pass it down. I took the liberty to go around the city and take pictures of different signs that we have that were approved. Back in 2003, the first picture that you see is big sharks, and as you can see, well, as it gets passed around, is actually comes out of the sign, and it was passed by the planning board in 2003. Obviously, the next one is the Mardi Gras, which was passed by this board, which, by the way, Mr. Libby was the one that made the motion to pass it. Thank you. Okay.
You notice they don't violate the roof line. of the
They do.
structure.
If you look at the bottom one, my roof line is actually
Oh, I'm
right.
not talking about that side, we're talking about the other side.
The other sign doesn't violate the roof line, but this sign definitely does, okay?
Surfboards do.
Half of my sign is
Well, but
above.
that isn't a roof line, that isn't the roof of the building, that's also an artificial construct up off the roof, so.
Okay, but this is where my level is, right?
Right.
You can see where the stairs stop.
Right.
To the right of the picture. Okay. Then on the next page is the one that we did for Big Kahunas, and it came before this board. And the surfboards protrude above the roof line over there, and I actually have the minutes from that meeting. Okay, no, you were not on the Big Kahuna.
Right.
Well, you were on the other ones, though, but, okay. But anyways, but I just wanted to show you different samples, and those are the only ones I could think of, but at least, I didn't want the board to be under the impression that we're creating a precedent here. I wanted the board to realize that we've been using this for years.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the only question is that we hope not to make the same mistake twice.
But
You know.
if it was a mistake, you were vice chairman of the board and you made the motion.
Well, but that was then, and this is now. We didn't have an E-zone back in 2002.
And
We didn't have a new land use plan. We didn't have a lot of things, in 2000.
No, but I would think-
All right, gentlemen.
I understand, but I would think that the easement would want friendlier signs like this, but okay, I'll
All right.
stop.
I would like to make a comment, just for the record, and it has a little bit to do with what Mr. Libby's saying. Last week, I had said as a designer
Last month.
perspective, is it not on?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Hello?
That's better.
Okay.
Okay. I had said last week, from a design standpoint, that I didn't think the signage was fitting with the integrity of the architecture of the building. However, since listening to everybody's comments on the board, everyone here really liked it, and Reed and his staff really liked it, and so I thought to myself, I must be missing something here. So I went back and I reread the vision of the E-zone of Main Street and the architecture and signage, as well as in contrast to A1A. And it very definitely says that it's supposed to be, the signage is supposed to be very dramatic, very sporty, very amusement park. And so, having said that, I'm going to retract everything I said, and I think it's a great sign. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of the board? Yes, Teresa.
I have a question of Ken. I guess. Does this pass turtle lighting scrutiny?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Does this pass turtle lighting?
The lighting that.
I'm assuming it's lit at night, right? There's lights.
We're gonna light it
Mhm.
at night.
Yeah.
Al hasn't gotten into great detail at Townsend Sign as to exactly how the lighting's gonna work, but the city staff will get involved at that point, I'm sure, to make sure that their lighting is up to where it needs to be. And then, in addition, the county will have to chime in as
Right.
to what
Yeah.
the turtle lighting will be approved.
Yeah.
At the very least, or the very simplest stage, which is what we do with a lot of our lighting on the beach side from May 1st to October 31st, is we just turn it off. Because I've got a lot of floodlights out there. And they just get turned off. As well as not only the exterior lights, but the lights inside the building get shielded.
Mhm.
Okay.
So all the lanterns that we have hanging down
Mhm.
have shields on them on the east side, so that you don't even see it. You do see light coming from the building, but you do not see the source of that light.
I think another way to say this is, because I know, at least currently, what I saw in your proposal was there was going to be potentially some uplighting or some, and so you'll have something that comes out and shines back at the sign.
Correct. It'll be, from what Al has described to me, it's similar to what they would use to light a billboard. And I'm not looking to, and again, there's all kinds of light pollution issues that
Right.
they deal with in all of their different applications with billboards, that they try to keep that to a minimum.
Mhm.
So we're not going to light it to the point where you're going to be able to see it from the lighthouse by any means. But it will have some tasteful lighting. And at this point, it doesn't appear that we're going to use any backlighting.
Mhm.
It'll basically be uplighting.
Right, and the
Mr.
spillover
Chairman.
lighting, I'm sure,
I have a question.
could also serve as a public service to make sure people don't trip coming down your stairways or what have you.
Well, we
that
try
are
to
right
keep
there.
those lit, but again, when you get into turtle season,
Right.
there isn't a whole lot of public safety involved
Right.
when the federal government's
There's turtle
involved
safety.
with their turtles.
Turtle safety,
Yeah.
forget the public. I
Any
do
other
have
questions?
I have a question, and actually, I just wanted to say, too, it's amazing what the loss of the beach ball does, because now it doesn't look so busy. I think the ocean deck, the name stands out again, not having some other little round circular thing. But what I am, and maybe the gentleman who you had with you, behind the sun, the way that that's attached, there's not going to be a lot of hardware up there, is there? Is there going to be like visible struts and structure and,
It'll be a sun. It'll be.
no,
a s-
but I mean behind it.
Yeah, from the other side. That
It will be a sun from both sides.
Oh, yeah, it can't be.
We need you actually up here if you're going to.
I'm Al Townsend, Townsend Sign Company. Thanks. The sun, the part that protrudes above the roof, all the wall graphics that we're proposing are three-dimensional shapes.
Right.
The back of that sun will be a flat shape, backed with appropriate material, probably half-inch PVC or what have you, for structural purposes, and will just be painted to match the front side.
Like I said, it's gonna,
Okay, well, I didn't know
From
how
the back
how
side,
that's
you're not
meant.
gonna see it anyway, because it's, on
On both
the north
sides.
side of the roof, and looking at it from the south, it's not gonna be there.
Okay.
As far as the lighting, what Ken was talking about, we're proposing induction lighting fixtures, which are made to light billboards. They're low light level pollution certified, as far as aiming up at the sky. They'll come off the building above the walkways, actually, on mast arms, and been aimed up, there'll probably be two aimed up at the wall, and they'll be shielded from the beach so the turtle people don't go nuts. There'll be no light pollution from any direction, except that they'll be aimed at the wall, and that's where the light will go. It won't go anywhere else.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, Ken, just as for one, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time and the effort to redo the sign, and I think it still has the impact you were after. I think it's a very dramatic sign and much more of a model for other people interested in upping the game in their signage. So thank you very much. I know it. Time is money, and I appreciate the effort.
Any other questions? I just have one quick question related to the structure, and I think you may have addressed it, but I'm concerned about that sun sticking up there and those little prongs, and even if you cut a piece of half-inch expanded PVC and mount the foam to that, how's that going to be 140 mile per hour wind load?
It's 139 right now, but
Close enough.
the whole structure will be engineered to meet 139 mile an hour wind loads by the 2010 building code. The graphic will be mounted to the wall. What's above the wall,
Okay.
it'll be structurally sound.
All right. It just seems like it'd take a bit of structure to hold those.
Well, that
Raise in
the
place.
actual part of that sun that's above the wall is probably going to be about 2.5 feet. And we can do it.
Okay. I just don't want half of it left up there.
Everything that's going to be put up there is going to be engineered.
Okay.
The structure, we'll have structural drawings which will diagram the mounting to the building and everything else, and that will be sealed by an engineer for wind load purposes. So we're good with that.
Very good.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of DEV 2012-075, embellishments at the Ocean Deck Restaurant.
Second.
As resubmitted.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing it.
Okay, Reed, next item,
The shark.
Beachside Business Directory.
This will be fairly quick because I don't have the draft
Oh,
completed, but even if I could, I can't show it to you because it's stuck in my computer, which has been fried in the lightning storm we had. So I'm not even gonna
go
be able to give you any view of it right now. But I will keep after it to get you something early because I'd like you to see it ahead of time for the next meeting. Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and again, this is going to be the one that's going to be everything, including ISB and Main Street and Atlantic Avenue. So it's been a lot of work, but we've got all the businesses inventoried now. And it's just the numbers on the map that go with an index. And it will be somewhat different than what we do downtown because of that complexity. It'll be a bigger fold-out map, but that's what we're going to be bringing back to you.
Okay, very good.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, Reed, will it be online as well? Will there be an
Yes.
online version?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. This is what we're reaching for, is to have that, and another piece is those kiosks, to clean them up and fill them out because they're a mess right now. In fact, we've got to get some new locks. I don't know who's getting in there, but it's, I mean, we do
The
have.
guy on the corner with his 50% off sign.
putting up his
Okay.
little garage sale signs.
Very good. All right. If I could go to number 7.
Sure.
On the parking discussion, we haven't done anything, and I apologize. I've been off on an extended time off and have not revisited that. And I do need to get back on that.
Well, good. And I just got, in fact, before coming in, I got a text message back from Josh Wagner from 3 days ago when I had asked him what the status was, and he missed my text, and he said he'll be following up and checking. But in that concept, I don't know if anyone else saw it on the news, but Cocoa Beach adopted a virtual parking system by people using their smartphones with an app, in which you go in, there's your parking space, you go up, credit card, boom, and you just do it. And it sounds like they're one of the first to do it. But it sounds like it could have some potential as being an incredibly flexible method of creating parking meters without parking meters.
And even the business directory and the other things that we have. Absolutely, and I think the county has taken the trolley now, or in this being Votran, and now they put that out there on mobile, and you can actually track the trolley and you can see where the bus system is as well. It's not just the trolley, and see when it's going to be there, if it's on time. It's all there on your mobile. They don't have an app yet to use, but there, as I understand it, the county manager said they're attempting to do that as well.
They need to get the Bright College kid, he'll do it in a heartbeat.
Mr. Chairman, on the parking issue, I've had some sort of coffee talk discussions about the Fernwood Hotel lot and its future, and something tells me, and maybe Teresa from the Business Association on Main Street knows a little more information, that the owner, parentheses, owners of the lot might be interested in some discussions with the city about use of that Fernwood property during non-special event times as parking for businesses on Main Street. And I don't know, Teresa, whether or not you've got an opinion on that or not. I think you could get 40 cars in that Fernwood hotel lot. The problem would be if some sort of a deal on taxes could be done, it might be a very interesting stopgap measure for merchants on Main Street, especially since we're trying to relieve the requirement by increasing the distance from the actual business location. That might be something interesting. And then also, I understand that the former Jerry Nolan property behind the Streamline Hotel was sold to the first mortgage holder on the courthouse steps for $100 a couple of months ago, and that there might be interest there as well. I know that that lot was spec'd for 90 parking spaces, and I don't know, Reed, whether or not there's been any discussions with Mr. Cox, who is the owner of the property, or not. I think he's a Colorado resident, but several meetings ago, I think we requested some sort of a survey about what could be available in the Main Street area, and while that's a little farther south than we had hoped, and it's outside of the boundaries of the E-zone, it's certainly in the redevelopment area, and all of a sudden it's starting to look better and better. I'm wondering whether or not that property behind the Streamline Hotel to the west of the Streamline would even qualify under the off-beach parking initiative that the county has now with $20 million, where they're looking to provide free off-beach parking for people visiting our beaches.
Well, I know they did that inventory, and the county did.
Yeah.
And certainly it wasn't there. But now that we know that, you're giving me some news that I don't have, so I appreciate that. I guess we have to look at that. I heard you say we were going to come back with a survey, so I must have missed that.
I think the request was that we look at any available property that would qualify for parking.
We have, let me explain that we are looking at that. I know we've looked at the surface lots as been explained. That there's a couple efforts going on here parallel to try to make something happen. The discussion is continuing with the county, as I understand. I checked in today. That's happening. No results right now. But going back to the Fernwood lot and some of the other properties that are pretty obvious there, sitting there vacant and not being used, some are paved. Is there an interest to put parking on there? Yes. I think the city's right now have been looking at how it's going to address all of this with the financial situation that we do have, which is extremely tight. I know that we've been looking at how we could finance this outside of just the CRA. So I know it's being pursued, and one of the keys to what our priority is right now in the parking is also what we're going to end up with on that Breakers Park, that last piece, and the cost that's involved there. It's a timing issue. So we've got a puzzle, and we're trying to get those pieces in the right priority here, which starts with the area around the pier and works its way basically away and down Main Street. But I also pass on this information about the other lot now in the sale, and make sure the people that are trying to have the discussion with the county are aware of that, put that in the mix.
It's a shame that the city didn't broach the county in parking for Joe's Crab Shack in the county lot, which would have freed up those other lots for merchants on Main Street. I don't know whether or not we even looked, the city looked into that or not.
Which
But,
county lot?
What county lot?
The county lot that is to the west of Peabody Auditorium. The county has a dog in the fight with the success of Joe's Crab Shack in a very big way. And while I think the city has been terrific in resolving its contractual obligations with Joe's, it was at a great cost. And those lots are important lots, but they don't help relieve the parking problem on Main Street, the ones that are reserved for Joe's Crab Shack.
Well, it's
So-
made it worse.
Yeah, well, perhaps made it worse. So I'm wondering if there's some way, that maybe the only rule we should have is flexibility in how we move the
Well,
parking. load.
and I think just the comment about the lots we set aside for Joe's, are we talking about the employee lots?
Yeah.
Okay, the employee lots, number one,
There.
part of that was to secure some of the future E-zone assembly of the property, so there's a dual benefit there. The other part of that was obviously just to make sure that the contract would work. In the future, there's a lot of things that can be moved around.
Yeah.
And we're not totally obligated to one place or another. Obviously, we have to get some agreements on how that will occur. And at some point, a parking structure will probably solve a lot of those issues that are immediate
Yeah.
in that area. But until then, we have something started, and now that's why we're looking down Main Street, trying to finish this last one at Breakers, and see if we have the financial resources in the ideal world to get everything.
With all the property that's available on the corner of International Speedway Boulevard and A1A and to the west, the old B&B Fisheries, and all of that property is prime property for development. It's in the Main Street redevelopment area. While it's not in the E-zone, it's going to be developed. It's just a matter of time. And so parking that is south of our current Larry Mullen's most southernmost lot starts to look somewhat more attractive, I think, in the future.
Sure.
Is there does the city have an option on the Mullins lot in time to buy it, or is it just a straight rental?
No, there's a piece in there where we can come in. It's fairly extensive, but there is a provision in there, so we can.
Okay.
We could acquire it. It really would be something that was set up so that if someone decided to implement purchase
well,
for a
that's-
hotel, we have a number anyway.
Yeah, that's good thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, because we didn't have that option in the first generation of parking in the
Correct.
Main Street area that was privately owned.
Yeah, and we had very little time to put that deal
Yeah.
together. But the flexibility on that, there's another lot there for Joe's, and it's
Yeah.
closer to Main Street. There may not be a lot of parking spaces, but it means a lot to people that are within close proximity to that. Our intent is to, at some point, see if we can't assemble some more property, consolidate the employee parking for Joe's.
Right.
It helps on security and everything, because there is some land there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that are tied up too, and when we talk about who has what land, and we've had some changes in ownership and the people who are involved. So some things are tied up legally, and we can't go near it.
Is the oceanfront lot that's currently being used for valet parking for Joe's, is its future parking?
Its future right now is temporary parking, and then to transition to park.
Okay.
And will it get to the point where, like what you see in the E-zone, that's kind of a total redo
Right.
of that whole concept at some point.
Right.
So we're not going there at this point, but I think what you'll see is an attempt to do something like they did in Ormond Beach, where you have the parking, the park, and
Okay.
you hardly know you're really dealing with a parking lot.
Right.
As much as you are with green
There are
space and
amenities,
parking.
yeah, and amenities.
Exactly, that's the
Okay.
intent.
Well, in just driving around the neighborhood there seemed to be the potential of between 150 and 250 additional parking spaces within 1,000 yards of Main Street that's maybe not available, but certainly, I think, leaning toward availability, as there's nothing on it and the taxes are coming due every year. And I'm just wondering whether or not, I'm sure the city is up on that.
We are.
Okay. All right.
But you got me, you surprised me on the one with Mr. Nolan.
Okay, thank you.
You also, okay, I'm sorry.
Question, Reed, on the
Yeah.
the infamous Ocean Center lot right adjacent to Main Street there, that all it takes is taking the lock off and having totally accessible, improved parking ready to go. Okay, it doesn't cost the city, doesn't cost the county a dime to take the lock off.
It's the insurance liability is what they argue. If the city would hold the county harmless on any insurance problems, any traffic, any crashes or people run over, or anything like that, I think it would move a lot quicker.
If the county could turn it into a metered lot in a heartbeat too, but,
Right.
I mean, is that supposedly the problem right now, is the liability issue?
I'm not involved in that detail. I don't know. I don't.
Can you send me an email as to who's involved with it so I can maybe talk to them?
Well, I can tell you, it's
Okay.
Paul Wetzel, city manager, and Paul McKittrick have been involved in that.
Okay.
There was once, one time where the boardwalk lot, that's come before this board, it wasn't to their advantage to stay open during the off-season, and they would shut it down, which kind of hurt us, and we actually made a deal with them for the off-season, where we cover certain costs or whatever, and kept it open, just because it looked better, and people would, and I'm sure that the business people in that area, if they're, or even the Mesa Redevelopment Board, because it's for the businesses, in that area, would be willing to, contribute towards the cost of whatever insurance is needed or what have you.
It's like, let's find out what the hurdle is and get
Right.
past it, so.
But also, and surface lots are the easiest thing, like you just said. You just take the locks off and there's the parking, but we also have that deal, I guess years down the road with the Hilton where we could actually build a high-rise parking garage on their lot, as long as we guarantee, how many spaces is it that we have to guarantee to them? Do you know?
The first floor would have to be that.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it has to be on the first floor, but we have to guarantee so many spaces to them.
Right, there is a guarantee in there in the lease. Could I just mention one other thing, because I think it's important, and this is an observation, you can follow up on this, but just remember that the Peabody lot, okay, Bank and Blues
Right.
on one side, the Peabody on the other side, it's got the box in there, and you can pay to park there, and during most events, whatever's going on down there, well, there are going to be a lot of people down there, and that lot is sitting primarily empty.
Yes, it is.
Because
And-
it doesn't look like a public lot.
I know. So that brings me to the other thing that's very important in what we're doing now. We've had progress, is that the wayfinding contract is finally off and running,
Yeah.
and we'll be sitting down with the people to get that going with AECom,
Signage.
Lassiter Transportation. So yeah, big thing, because just some better signage to let people know where you can get that parking, because that's closer than a lot of these lots.
And what do you have, 40 spaces in there, 60 spaces?
Right, but it's lighting, it's making it feel safer,
Sure.
there's a lot of things that still go into this, just like downtown. When you go to a Cubs game, you'd like people to actually park behind the stores and shop at the stores. So, challenges ahead. The other thing, while I'm on that, I need to just tell you that CPH contract for the ISB streetscape was also, at the same time as wayfinding, approved for some revisions, because there was a stalemate there. That's now moving forward. So the next thing is to start seeing the concept drawing, so we can all start to have some input on that. Okay. Which I'm kind of transitioning into the redevelopment
Yeah,
projects.
I've picked up on that.
Thanks. So the E-zone document. I sent it out to you. I wasn't expecting you to come tonight and have comments. This is really about giving you some time into September so we can come back and address that public draft. Hopefully you all got that document.
It's
I don't
attached.
think we have it online yet, but it's gone out to the planning board and to some of the other groups to start reviewing.
Well, I do have.
Oh, yeah, we have it.
I do have a couple questions on this. Like, for instance, I'm looking at it right here, and there's some properties that are labeled as amenities realm. You know, so I mean,
Where are you looking? You need to
if
give
you
us a
look on page
page.
6, I think these properties are devoted to just corridors of some sort, or what is that? Page 6, the green.
The green, okay.
Amenities realm.
The PR, the public realm?
Right.
Okay. The amenities realm or public realm is referred to in the E-zone plan. That is intended to be a public area that people can go through. It may or may not be owned by the city. It
No.
may be something that the developer has to set aside for the public to walk through.
But my question is, if this is going to be put into a future land use map, I mean, well, for instance, my father-in-law owns the Christina's gift shop that's totally green right here, okay? Well, obviously, he's not going to be donating his gift shop to the public for purposes of having public gatherings or what have you, you know? And obviously, there's no eminent domain that you could use right now, so I guess my question is, if it's put this way into the future land use map, and God forbid a fire were to happen to a building that's labeled to the public, are you saying that these buildings are not going to be able to be rebuilt? Because if that's the case, then you're going to have a lot of property owners that are going to be ready to fight this right off the onset.
Yeah, it's now not intended to be something we're using and making a change or a land use map.
Okay, so it won't
But
be
when-
part of the land use map.
This will become a part of a document that we've already, if you remember the comp plan that we had, and I attached all of those changes in there, that's what you get right now. There's no other changes for now. As we go forward, someone says, I want to develop that area, that's when you start addressing this as a guide for where something's going to be, and we're going to look at it and say, well, you know, we've got somebody there, you can't do anything. Nothing in this document is intended to use an eminent domain tool or something else and force someone.
Or to
Out of
grandfather the
business.
person in any way, shape, or form. Like, in other words,
Deny a grandfather.
was that,
Deny a grandfather. Deny the grandfather is the question.
Yeah,
Right.
I've got all the eminent domain experts here I'm looking at. So I'm just telling you, that's not the intent. The intent is to simply give an idea of where the public realm is going to be or should be in the planning. There should be some connections. How that actually gets designed is something that happens when somebody proposes to do
In other
it.
words, it's conceptual and a guideline, but not a mandate.
That's right.
okay, so 20 years from now, if a building within the green area were to build, they still would have the same ability to rebuild as before?
Sure. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
And what read this, because this is land development code now. We're getting to a different level. This has some form-based type of information in it that you want to look at, get familiar with, and then I would probably encourage you to write questions. Feel free in the interim between now and the next meeting to email myself or Rich Walton, our planning manager, and we'll try to get some of the answers for you.
Well, I got one more question, okay?
Sure.
And on some of these setbacks that you're proposing, some of these properties do not have setbacks currently. So if this is proposing setbacks in the future, when will this take into effect?
It takes effect when we can make something happen. The perfect example is that big traffic circle at Main Street and A1A that some of you aren't enamored with, and some of you like it. That if we were going to have a traffic circle, it's going to require some acquisition of the corner properties, i.e. the 50% building.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's, and the only reason you're going to do that is because there's a real project there on the corner to develop and real people with real money to make it happen.
Does that
And
do
you
your-
know that any partial takes in eminent domain, any partial takes does require business damages to be awarded. So,
We're not talking about takes.
no, I know,
Okay.
but when you're talking about a traffic circle, that would be a,
We're not, and we're not intending to, nor have we been advised that traffic circles are something you can use as a take anyway.
Right.
So we won't worry about it, because I don't want to raise anybody's concerns or tension when there is nothing that's valid there. It's really going to deal with voluntary, whatever that is, to make these things happen. We're not trying to make everyone rich, but some people will do pretty good if these projects really happen.
okay.
All right, does that do it, you read?
That is pretty much it. If you have questions on this special events, anything else, let me know. I'm trying to set up a meeting at Peabody Auditorium right now, but I don't have a date and time that's worked out. So we can have a meeting that you've been requesting.
Okay, if we can't get something set soon, I'd like to go ahead and just bring the matter back up before this board in September,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
So we got to move one way or the other.
okay.
All right. Board comments. Why don't we start to the right? Teresa, anything? Dustin?
No comment, thank you.
Suzanne?
Oh, of course I have some.
I would be disappointed.
That's right. Actually, the first thing, question for Reed, the strategic planning goals that, we've had input on, do those come at the start of our, when do we see those back? Have we ever actually said that we agreed on any of them, or?
No, that's,
So,
I've just left that off the list. I can bring that back.
okay.
The answer's no.
I just think it would be,
Conclude that one.
yes.
Okay,
I'd
bring it to a
like to-
conclusion.
Okay. Second thing is a board, and I am not at all suggesting we don't do this, but what I'm asking is if the board is interested in continuing the invocation or just doing the Pledge of Allegiance. On the planning board, we don't do an invocation. I don't know which boards do. I know it's been a matter of habit. And I have no problem doing the invocation, but is there a general consensus that we want to continue that, or that we don't? I know the commission does, they start their meetings with them, but I just thought I'd ask.
I think it's fair to keep doing it.
I'm okay with it. You did a great job.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because it is sort of a new board, and I kept meaning to
And
ask
maybe we should
about
make
it.
it a policy to go to Chick-fil-A after our meetings too.
It's not on the way home, though.
And kiss, yes. And then my last thing is just actually a comment to sort of round out Mr. Berger's comment here. I don't know, this was this past Sunday, the local developers, the Little Help on the City project. This is at the Grandview and Braddock, I think it is, whatever the two are, but no one is building single-family homes there, said Reed Berger, city's redevelopment director. And what I would like to point out is, and he was aware of the one, but actually there are 3 homes that have been built. One block over from here, or two, 1 block over from here, new homes. One about 3 houses east of here, which doesn't even have an address yet. It's so new. And then immediately west of this proposed project are 3 homes that have undergone total renovations. Total. They're really stunning what they did. A couple of smaller bungalows, and then one just absolutely beautiful. And I just think it's important to realize that there is private money coming back in, and there is home ownership coming back in, and there is confidence coming back into this area. And I just hope that it translates. I think it was a great idea that was done to use the money as a possible down payment that was done here, but I just hope it translates to this project becoming a true viable project, because it would make such a difference along with everything else that's happening.
Kim?
Gary. The only comment is that you probably saw the paper this morning that the Volusia County Council is granting to the Heritage Preservation Trust the money to buy the Hotchkiss House, which is directly north of Lillian Place on the river.
That big, beautiful?
Yeah, the Hotchkiss Mather House, which
wonderful.
will be linked with Lillian Place, and there will be another important, very important historical structure saved. I don't want to bore you with who Hotchkiss was, but he invented the stapler. Was a multi-millionaire major character whose daughter, Mrs. Hayne, gave the Hayne Chapel at Cookman, and tied up one of his partners, Balcom, was the developer of South Daytona, and very interesting story, great Daytona Beach story. And I'd like to thank the city for their support, which was quietly, good quiet pressure, and especially the Volusia County Council, who really came through to save this historic structure. This is the first two now out of the gate are both in the city of Daytona Beach, the Lillian Place and the Hotchkiss Mather House.
That's such a fabulous home.
Dina?
Yeah, I just want to, and this has nothing to do with Mr. Berger, but as far as the, last week there was a meeting of the Friends of the Band Show, and you know, I have a business motive to be a member of the Friends of the Band Show. Obviously, the fireworks and the concerts help my business on the boardwalk. But a lot of these members are retired, and they actually devote their time to bring out the chairs there, sell it, this and that. And they were really upset with the city as far as all the permit fees that came back to them. They were kind of like led to believe it would be one fee, and then suddenly, you know,
It's a sliding scale.
yeah, it got to the point where some of these members are not sleeping at night, how they're going to make the payments and all this other stuff. And obviously, we're going to try to resolve. I have a meeting with the city manager, but I'm a little upset because like Mr. Nicholson said in front of the city commission a couple of months ago, we're doing the city, the Friends of the Band Show is doing the city a favor. I mean, they are actually working hard, and if this was a body of the city, there'd be $200,000 salaries here and there, you know, being employed, you know, and I felt bad because, you know, it's like a slap in their face, but you know, but at the same time, you know, hopefully we'll be able to resolve it. I mean, anybody interested, I have a list of the fees and everything. If anybody wanted to see it, but, you know, just wanted to make that point. But other than that, everything's fine, and we'll go on from there. And like I said, I'm not targeting you because you have nothing to do with it, you know.
Well, but I'll be at the meeting, so we'll hopefully get it resolved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dina. And I have no comments. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Gary, do you want one?